We're now on lecture 17, and for the next few lectures, what we'll be doing is going through a red herring prospectus, right? Or a draft red herring prospectus. So we have the draft red herring prospectus for Burger King India Limited, which went public sometime in 2019. And we'll be going through this in some detail. So right at the beginning, this is the first page. I'm just going to scroll out or zoom out a little bit. This is what the first page looks like, and you'll see that there's a lot of information about the company, about the offer in the first page itself. So let's find out more about Burger King India Limited. We know that this is a draft red herring prospectus that was filed in November 2nd, 2019, under Section 32 of the Companies Act, which requires that a company file a prospectus before the Registrar of Companies in order to do a public offering. We note that this draft red herring prospectus will be updated with obviously SEBI comments and observations and updates to the company, if any, before filing with the Registrar of Companies. You've got the logo of the company here and the name, and we get straight into what the company is about. So this company was incorporated as Burger King India Private Limited under the Companies Act on November 11th, 2013. And later on, this company was converted into a public limited company, and a fresh certificate of incorporation was issued in 2019. And further details of the changes in registered office, we'll have to go to page 133, which we'll take care of later. So we've got the addresses of the registered office and the corporate office, the contact person who's going to be in charge of compliances, and their email. You've got your website and the CIN number, right? So this is basic information about the company that we have. Now, who's our promoter? QSR Asia Private Limited. This is probably based out of Singapore, as we can see from the way that private is abbreviated, but we'll come to who the promoter is in the promoter chapters. So what is this offer about? We don't really know how many shares yet at this stage, but we know that it's going to be a fresh issue of shares and an offer for sale. There you go. So it's going to be a fresh issue as well as an offer for sale. So we know that this is a composite issue of up to 60 million equity shares, right? So we know that QSR Asia, the promoter selling shareholder, is making an offer for sale for 60 million shares and an undisclosed or uncalculated number of shares for the fresh issue. And together, this will aggregate up to 40 million. The fresh issue will aggregate up to 40 million, and further it's going to be 4 million, and further there's going to be an offer for sale for 60 million equity shares, right? All right. Now the company is also considering a private placement of equity shares aggregating up to 1,500 million rupees at its own discretion prior to the filing of the red herring prospectus, right? So the pre-IPO placement. Now, the pre-IPO placement is pretty much done in order to increase the paid up share capital of the company, right? So, but if the pre-IPO placement is completed, the number of equity shares issued pursuant to the pre-IPO placement will be reduced from the fresh issue, right? So what this means is, in this case, what they're trying to do is they're trying to raise some money, right? Now, whether they try to raise it from the public or through a pre-IPO placement, a private placement, it really doesn't matter to the company much because, well, money has no color, right? So at the end of the day, what we've understood so far is that the promoter is doing an offer for sale for up to 60 million shares, plus the company needs an infusion of capital by about 4,000 million, of which some part of it will be through an initial public offering of a fresh issue of equity shares. We don't know how many shares we have yet. And we're also considering raising some money through a pre-IPO placement, right? So if the pre-IPO placement is completed, the number of equity shares will be issued pursuant to the pre-IPO placement will be reduced from the fresh issue. So this fresh issue will decrease over here. All right. Of course, subject to a minimum offer size of 10% of the post-offer paid-up share capital being offered to the public as is required under the securities contract regulation rules. All right. Now, the face value of the company is 10 rupees, as is with most companies. We haven't yet decided the offer price, and this will be done just after the red herring prospectus has been filed. And this will be decided by our company and the promoter selling shareholder in consultation with the book running lead managers or the merchant bankers. The price will be advertised in certain editions of newspapers, which are widely circulated English daily newspapers, Hindi daily newspapers, and Marathi daily newspapers. You might ask, why Marathi? Because Marathi is the regional language of the state of Maharashtra, where their registered office is located. So, any public information, any information that is to be widely disseminated to the public, such as the fact that Burger King is doing an IPO, what are how many shares are being offered, what is the share price, ought to be circulated amongst newspapers in English, in Hindi, so a national English newspaper, a national Hindi newspaper, and a newspaper in the regional language where the registered office is located. All right, and this will be done at least 2 working days prior to the bid offer opening date and shall be made available to the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange, and together these are known as the stock exchanges for this particular offer. In case we have a revision in the price band, we will extend the bid offer period by at least 3 days, and this will be widely disseminated by notification to the stock exchanges. Right now, we know that this offer is being made in terms of Rule 19.2. This requires that at least 10% of the post-issue paid-up share capital be offered to the public, again subject to the fact that we have at least 400 crores or 4,000 million shares worth of shares being offered to the public, right? All right, but let's take a look at whether this is being made under 6.1 or 6.2 of the ICDR. So, where did it go? Yeah, this offer is being made through the book building process in accordance with Regulation 6.2 of the ICDR regulations, where not less than 75% of the offer shall be made available for allocation on a proportionate basis to quibs. Right? So we know for a fact that in this particular case, at least 75% of the shares ought to be made available or should be allotted to qualified institutional buyers. Right? Now, the company the promoter selling shareholder, in consultation with the book running lead managers, may allocate up to 60% of the QIB portion to anchor investors on a discretionary basis. So we are creating an opportunity for ourselves to offer these shares to anchor investors as well. 1/3 of the anchor investor portion shall be reserved for domestic mutual funds, subject to bids being received. Right? So we have one disclaimer here. If at least 75% of the offer cannot be allocated to quibs, what happens then? Offer fails. The bid amounts received by a company shall be refunded, right? So we have a statement here saying that if we do not meet that 75% requirement, all the bid amounts received by this company will be refunded back to the public. And the remainder 25%, not more than 15% of the offer shall be made available for allocation on a proportionate basis to non-institutional bidders, also known as high net worth individuals, and not more than 10% of the offer shall be made available to retail investors, right? In accordance with SEBI ICDR. Now, all bidders, apart from anchor investors, all investors are mandatorily required to participate in the offer through ASBA. Now, we know what ASBA is. In ASBA, they will provide details of their respective bank accounts, which will be blocked by these banks to the extent of their respective bid amounts. However, note here that anchor investors are not permitted to participate in the ASBA process. right? Now we have a couple of basic risks that are set up in the first page. That because this is the first offer of the company, we don't really know what the market price of these equity shares after listing is going to be, and we cannot give any assurance um, regarding an active or sustained trading in the equity shares, nor any assurance regarding the price at which these equity shares will be traded. Um, and of course, there's a general risk in investing in shares. We must take this into account, that investors should not invest any funds unless they can afford to take the risk of losing their investment entirely. Investors are advised to read the risk factors in this offer document, and of course, we'll go through the risk factors. And in taking an investment decision, investors must rely on their own examination of the company and the offer. Right? All right. One disclaimer on behalf of SEBI. SEBI does not guarantee the accuracy or adequacy of the contents of this DRHP, and they have not been recommended or approved by the Securities and Exchange Board of India. So effectively, what SEBI is trying to do over here is saying that, look, we've tried our best, but please rely on your own judgment and your own discretion as to whether or not you'd like to invest in this company, right? Now, of course, there is a declaration by the company saying that we accept responsibility that this red herring prospectus contains all the information which is material, and that this all the information in this DRHP is true and correct in all material aspects, not misleading, and the opinions and intentions expressed herein are honestly held. So effectively, this document is being brought to you in good faith. Having said that, the promoter selling shareholder accepts responsibility for only the statements made or confirmed by the promoter selling shareholder. Now, mind you, this is a composite issue, which means that the company ought to take responsibility for all matters relating to itself with regard to the company and the offer, and the promoter selling shareholder takes care of any statements made by the promoter selling shareholder, right? All right. The promoter selling shareholder assumes no responsibility for any other statements, including statements made by the company or relating to the company or its business, or by any other person, right? All right. Where are we going to list? We will be listing in the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange, where we've already received in principle approvals, right? And this is the case with the vast majority of companies that go public in India. Most of them will list either on the Bombay Stock Exchange or the National Stock Exchange. Finally, who are the book running lead managers? We've got Kotak Investment Banking, we've got CLCA, India Private Limited, we've got Edelweiss, we've got JM Financial. All of these companies are fairly well known, and they're fairly you know popular with companies who are going public. And I've worked with some of these companies before, and I find that most of them are very, very professional. The registrar to the offer is Lincoln Time, and these guys are the ones who will keep a record of who's putting in the bid, who's withdrawing their bids, how the book building process is going to run. Right, and of course we've got a couple of conditions. Our company and the promoter selling shareholder may, in consultation with the bankers, consider participation by anchor investors. We already know this, and that the anchor investor bid offer period will be 1 day prior to the bid offer opening date. So we have some dates on which the bid offer period will open and it will close. 1 day prior will be 1 working day prior to the bid offer opening date is going to be the date on which anchor investors may put in their bids, right? All right. So that was it about the first page of DRHP. And as you can see, again, there's plenty of information about the company and about the offer. In further lectures, we'll go ahead and look at the rest of the DRHP. This is going to take a while. This is going to take quite a few lectures and quite some amount of time to go through the entire 320-page document.